information from it and discuss it with them. They love the press, they love the publicity, and now you're doing it for me, and I thank you.
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I think you're one of the. You've been called in many contexts the Andy Kaufman of Clubhouse. I think that's very apropos. I think what you are, John, to me, is a performance artist on this app. I think you really utilize the app and bring many people a lot of entertainment. Although many people, you bring many people consternation and frustration. But I think that they're some people. I find your antics, I find your shtick, I find your whole vibe, quite interesting. I'm thrilled.
This is an interview I'm doing with Scott here on Clubhouse.
Talk a little bit with the aspiring candidate, Congressman. Now, John, you're a Republican. You're running as a Republican. In what congressional district is this? What number district in Illinois?
This is the 16th district. The top towns are Rockford, Peoria, Bloomington.
Peoria, of course, isn't this the setting of Wayne's World? Peoria, Illinois?
God, is it?
I do believe Peoria is the setting of Wayne's World. I don't know if they actually did any filming, but I'm pretty sure that was the setting. It was Peoria, yeah. So you're there in you're running for the 16th district. Now you say you're a carpetbagger. You said that recently in an interview with NPR. Why do you call yourself, John, a carpetbagger? Usually a self-deprecating term that usually political opponents call candidates as a term of derision. Why do you embrace this like a badge of honor?
Well, I wanted to get out in front of being called a carpetbagger, and he actually, if you listen to the interview, didn't really quote me, fully. So, but I don't live in the district, and that's the first question everybody asks you. Well, you don't live in the district. Why are you running for Congress? And so this was just a way for me to bring up the issue, in the interview. Jane is here. Welcome, Jane. We're doing an interview here. Scott has agreed and has graciously given his time to do a little interview with me. Thank you, Jane. Jane is a campaign contributor. And Jane, I don't have maybe I have your cell phone number because you donated, but Scott can text you the link to the press that I got today on WGL, a local NPR radio in Normal, Illinois, Bloomington, Illinois.
Now, John, you're a conservative Republican, and NPR is often maligned as having a liberal bias. Do you think you were treated fairly by this NPR affiliate? How were you treated? Do you feel like the coverage was biased? Do you feel like this was responsible journalism?
I think they did a pretty good job, and I've read the article. I need to reread the article again. And I also want to listen to their audio. But I asked him if I can live stream myself in their little audio booth, and he said nobody's ever asked that. Let me go ask. He comes back. He says, no, they don't want you to live stream the interview. He said, but you can record the audio to make sure that we don't screw with the audio at all. So I feel like it was pretty fair.
And you've debated who's your opponent again? His name is LaHood, right? Is it Darren LaHood?
Darren LaHood, the Hood Rat.
His father was in the Obama administration, correct?
That's correct. And
so his father, then I'm assuming, was a Democrat. How is Darren LaHood a Republican? What do you know? How he became a Republican? What was the sort of journey that led him? I assume at one point he was a Democrat because his father was Secretary of Transportation or something, but I could be wrong.
Well, as I said in the interview, he's a rhino, which is Republican in name only, and that's exactly what he is. Just like his father's a Democrat, I said that he doesn't fall far from the tree. So that's the way I view it. I mean, anybody who's not fiscally conservative, they're not really a Republican, and they're certainly not a libertarian. So that's my opinion about really which team you're on, whether you're an elephant or a donkey. I think it comes down to how much money you're willing to borrow and spend on behalf of your constituents and all Americans. And Darren LaHood is spending $2 trillion more by voting yay on HR acts, and it's really more than our deficit is really more than 2 trillion a year. It's really approaching like 2.2, 2.3 trillion a year, if not even more. Probably 2.5 trillion a year.
John, most of the Republicans, they don't understand money like you do or I do. They really don't. They're kind of like, I think they vote conservative because the Democrats are just so bad. I mean, there's not one.
If you have a question, please. I'm willing to give you a question to take a break and take a question from the audience. But until that, I'm just going to do a little bit of interviewing first, okay, Nick?
Okay, I'll drop down.
And then we'll open it up to the crowd. Thank you. Appreciate your commentary. John, what are your thoughts? You're a fiscal conservative. You're somebody that is running to get the deficit under control. To get the, I'm going to move Gary down too. Gary, you can come back up if you have a question. I'm just going to keep the stage a little tight here. You're a fiscal conservative. You, the Andy Kaufman of Clubhouse, that you've been called. You're a fiscal conservative. While you do a lot of clowning around this app, you take the deficit quite seriously. What are your thoughts on the big, beautiful bill? How do you feel about the big, beautiful bill? Would you have voted for it if you had been in Congress representing the 16th District of Illinois?
I would have voted no, just like Thomas Massey, because I did a correlation using Grok AI, looking at open secrets and looking at all the HR acts. So the query is, can you correlate all of Darren LaHood's donors with all of his HR acts? And if you look at what the big beautiful bill is, it's a huge tax credit for the Fortune 500. The number of the top 5 recipients are literally Apple. Apple's number 1. It gets the biggest tax credit. So my reasoning is, how are we all going to work 5 days a week to pay Apple's taxes? Explain that to me, Scott. How are we going to work every day of the week to pay taxes for Microsoft, for Google, for Verizon, Comcast, Pfizer, Moderna, J&J? No, let these Fortune 500 corporations pay their taxes. We're not going to work and paying the taxes for them through our income taxes by giving us debt and borrowing, by giving them tax credits. So it's to me, it's a scam. It's infuriating. It's hypocritical. It's dishonest into the bargain, into the compact. And all Americans should be enraged by this, that this Congress and President Trump has given all $500 billion. I think it's over like 4 years, 10 years. I can't remember the numbers. I did a lot of research in Grok, and I need to pull it all, but that's my feeling, Scott.
Now, interestingly, Donald Trump in the last election won voters who made under $55,000 a year. Now, that Republicans generally don't win them. At the presidential level especially, this is something. No, he didn't win them by a lot, but he did win them. Now he's signed a bill that cuts Medicaid and food stamps. Now, Medicaid and food stamps are not a huge part of the federal budget. I realize you're a fiscal conservative. Do you think we could make headway on the deficit and leave Medicaid and food stamps in place, not cut them? Are there other places we could cut that didn't hurt the working poor?
We have to cut Medicare, Medicaid. That money doesn't go to we the people. Food stamps, that comes to we the people. But your Medicare, Medicaid is going to Cardinal Health, to Blue Cross Blue Shield, to Pfizer, to Moderna, to J&J, to Big Pharma, to big health chains. That's corporate profit. So there's a big difference there between people going to the grocery store to buy food versus going to the hospital so the government can pay for their services. The average Medicare, Medicaid recipient is costing the government about $15,000 to $20,000 a year. I would be willing to bet that a lot of those people would rather have a $20,000 check than even getting Medicare, Medicaid. But let's be honest, a lot of the medical services and the providers don't give you what it's worth for your actual health. So the cost benefits analysis or the return on investment from that $4 trillion a year just is not there. It's mostly corporate profit making. And there's real services. As you know, the denial of coverage for many procedures is rampant. So let's be honest. Let's call it out and say they're ripping us off.
But John, I mean, what do you do? Look, if somebody doesn't have health insurance or Medicaid, let's say you give them $15,000 or something, but one car accident, right, could take away that $15,000, right? I mean, without health insurance. I mean, do you know how many people went bankrupt last year for medical expenses in Canada?
Listen, bankruptcy can come in many different forms, not just because you have a medical
It was
emergency.
zero around medical expenses. And the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country is medical expenses. So, I mean, it can quickly bankrupt you. So, I mean, I think insurance, it can be, it can be the life or death thing for people. So, I mean, people on Medicaid are usually living paycheck to paycheck, right? I mean, I don't know what they're going to do if you cut them from their benefits. I mean, I don't know how they're going to get insurance.
Scott, this country is $37 trillion in funded debt, $100 trillion in unfunded debt. During World War II, you know what my grandmother did? She rationed. And I asked her, what was it like after we won the greatest war of the world? She said the government didn't give me anything. So the point is, my mantra in my campaign is stop borrowing, stop spending. Scott, are you of the belief that our economic model allows us to just continually to borrow and spend money that we don't take in at 37 trillion? Do you think that that is capitalism, or are we approaching some other type of economic model in the world?
Well, look, I think what we need to do is get something responsible that can be done, right? Is get the deficit in a responsible percentage of GDP, right? I mean, I don't think.
Well, what is it? 50%, 150%? What's responsible debt to GDP to you?
Probably somewhere, depending on the urgency of the issue, is probably somewhere between 20 to 40%. I think for a country that prints its own money and has a currency that's a standard trading currency, I think we could probably run smaller deficits and not. Look, I agree that the deficit's out of control and the debt is out of control. Though the damage, I don't think we're ever going to pay the entire debt. But I think what we could do is bring it into a responsible relationship. Bring the deficit, into a responsible situation so that our currency is not devalued and that it doesn't cause inflationary problems and other sorts of things.
I mean,
so I don't think the debt itself is a crisis, but the high deficits constantly are a crisis.
Well, the deficits create the national debt. It just keeps adding $2 trillion plus a year to 37 trillion. So if you want a 20% debt to GDP, run those numbers and you'll be shocked at how much we're going to have to cut. You could kiss Medicare, Medicaid goodbye.
How are you going to get us there? If you're going to balance the budget, tell us where will you make the most significant?
We are in a terrifying financial situation. Look at it this way. If we're spending $2 trillion a year that we don't collect because we're only collecting $5 trillion, but we're spending $7 trillion. If we were to cut Medicare, Medicaid by, let's say, $1.5 trillion and the National Defense Authorization Act at $500 billion, that's $2 trillion right there. That's what we borrow every year that we spend that we don't have. That brings us back to baseline. But we're spending $1 trillion a year on interest on a $37 trillion mortgage. So if we just keep kicking this can down the road, it will end up becoming totally unsustainable, completely run away. That's hyperinflationary. So if you want your milk to go from $1.99 at your local grocery store to $10 and live in that type of society where people all of a sudden have absolutely no excess income to spend it on anything because they're just trying to survive, that is what we will live in. That's what society will be like. It will be extremely harsh. There will be no forgiveness for the crimes and the fraud and the waste and abuse that we have been doing because inflation will catch up to us eventually. I don't know when, but in 2050.
So you're saying you would cut from defense. You just said you would cut how much?
$500 billion. We can defend this nation with $500 billion a year. I believe it. We don't need to spend $1 trillion a year defending ourselves. $500 billion is substantial to create a lethal military force that will protect us and keep us safe.
Okay, so that's fine. So now, how much do we have to get? We got to get $1.5 trillion more out of the budget. Where are you going to get that?
Medicare, Medicaid. We're spending $4 trillion a year there. We can do it at $2.5 trillion a year. We can keep our society healthy and safe. But the major corporations aren't going to make the profits they're going to make. And guess what? That's going to impact retirees' portfolios. The whole system is connected. If if Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, and 100 other big healthcare corporations suffer the loss of $1.5 trillion a year from our national budget, and they're forced to go to the market to make up that profit, those stocks are going to crater. They could drop 80%. So the point is we have to optimize now to prevent bigger cataclysmic crashes in the future. The Federal Reserve and Congress is artificially inflating this economy by 40% a year. Almost half of our economy is from borrowed money, not money we take in from income taxes or corporate taxes or what the Treasury brings in. So we are in a major fiscal crisis now. And Chairman Powell made a Freudian slip on TV just a couple weeks ago. He said the crisis is now, it's not in the future. Then he corrected himself. Actually, the crisis is in the future, it's not now. So I'm telling you, we're already there. It's 2025. In 2001, when we kicked off World War III, aka 9/11, and invaded 6 countries and deployed hundreds of thousands of soldiers all around the world to fight terrorists, that's when our borrowing and spending started kicking off like a heroin addict or an alcoholic who just can't kick the habit. And we haven't stopped. I'm running for Congress to stop the heroin addict in Congress and the alcoholics who keep borrowing and spending. These people are not rational. They're not rationing. We have to start rationing. And if we don't have this type of attitude, we're lying to ourselves and we're hypocrites.
I think you've got a supporter here, and Mrs. Lopez Aguirre. She's down in the chat. She's loving what she's hearing. John, you think you can cut $1.5 trillion from healthcare spending and not have adverse outcomes on American health?
You
Which
see,
is already, I mean, we already,
you keep pointing us towards we the people and our health. I'm pointing you back to the corporations that are making hundreds of billions of dollars a year off of that Medicare, Medicaid slush fund. It's not about our health, Scott. It's about the profits of these corporations. Get real, man. Wake up.
So you're saying that if you cut this $1.5 trillion, you're thinking it's all just going to go to the corporations. Are any seniors or any people on Medicaid going to see real services cut when you cut this money?
They're already seeing services cut. They're already seeing service of denial at United Healthcare. They're already getting shafted. Start shafting the corporations that are shafting us. They're ripping us off, Scott.
All right, so there you go. You've heard it here, folks. Candidate Congressman Kitover would cut $500 billion for defense, which is aggressive, and I think probably could be done, and $1.5 trillion from healthcare spending, which I don't know that can be done without adversely affecting outcomes, but maybe it can. I mean, candidate Congressman Kitover, how do you feel right now about the ICE detention rates? What do you feel about masked ICE ICE officers on the streets? Is that, I mean, some people find this to be fascistic. I mean, are you comfortable with these tactics to deal with undocumented workers?
It seems very cruel, and I don't like it. I thought maybe we should grant amnesty to every non-criminal illegal alien in this country, seal the border, get them in the system, because we need their tax revenue. We need them having a social security number. But if you do a cost benefits analysis and you see if you just give people a social security number, they're actually probably a net negative on the system. If you go to India, if you go to Russia, if you go to Brazil, if you go to any other developed country in the world and you enter their country illegally and you start working, do you know what the punishments are? It ranges from 2 to 10 years in imprisonment. So the liberal industrial complex in this country, or just Americans in general, have let this go under the radar for far too long. We're completely inundated with a lot of vagrant aliens. I can go to my grocery store right now and there's people begging outside the grocery store. They're everywhere in Chicago, and they're going to get picked up.
You would be open to amnesty. You would be open to sealing the border, but getting people here that are working amnesty to let them sort of integrate into the system.
That's what I originally believed, but when I looked up the punishments in foreign countries for illegal invaders who try to set up shop and go to work in those countries, it's huge prison sentences. So they really want to deter migrants from coming into their country. I'm not for this migrant invasion. I think what Trump is doing is rational. It's needed. And as you know, under the Biden administration, they let hundreds of thousands and millions of people flood into this country illegally with no documentation, let alone we're all being told to mask up and vax. Meanwhile, BLM is rampaging through the streets unvaxxed, and illegal aliens are pouring into the country unvaxxed. So we're getting fucked in this country. Our government hates us. And I'm going to put a stop to it by accurately describing the situation. Now, you may not agree with me, but it is my opinion that I'm accurately describing the way that we're getting fucked as Americans.
Jeff, what do you do? I mean, in California, for instance, they're not able to harvest all the crops. There's fruit and other things dying on the trees because there's a shortage of workers. I mean, how do we, with the deportations, with rounding up people, what do you do with the labor shortage that deportations are causing? How do we make up those jobs?
Well, those organizations and corporations that are running those farms, they need to work with the government in order to get the labor in. They need to sell that food, to produce that food. I hope it's not being exported, to international markets. But a lot of the migrant workers from Mexico, like the famous Cesar Chavez, individuals like that, they need to be given worker permits to come in and do the work. And then if they're going to go back home, go back home. But that would be a good thing for our economy. So I'm not against that. I'm against a lot of the vagrants who are here and a lot of the murderers. There's just countless stories of innocent Americans, young women, young men that get murdered by illegal aliens. If you had a family member get murdered by an illegal alien, you might have a different opinion about the situation, Scott.
John, let me ask you this. By the way, natural, undocumented workers have a lower crime rate than natural-born citizens. That's a statistical fact. There's many studies that have been done. It makes sense why, too, right? If you're here and you want to work, you're probably not even running stop signs and stuff. So
put the link in the chat. I'd like to see your receipts on that one, Scott.
Oh, yeah. There's a number of studies done on this. There was a major one done in Texas. This is not controversial. I mean, Mrs. Lopez Aguirre says that's true. Yeah, this is not a controversial statistic. And undocumented folks illegal immigrants, undocumented folks have a lower crime rate than natural-born citizens, hands down. They're not. Now, I'm not saying you can't find stories, which Fox highlights all the time, whatever happens, of an undocumented person killing somebody. It happens, but they do it at a much lower rate than people that are born here. But, all right, so, John, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts? Would you take funding from AIPAC?
Well, Darren LaHood has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding from AIPAC. I myself, if AIPAC called me and they said, hey, John, we like what you're doing, we like what you're saying, which I know they're not, I would take their money. I need this money to go get on the road to get these signatures. I got somebody I got to call right now who wants to gather petitions for me. I will take money from anybody at this point. However, a lot of people have become extraordinarily anti-Semitic on social audio apps just in society in general because of this Palestinian conflict. And I got to say, there is no more money for America to ship it overseas. The State Department, Marco Rubio, little Marco, he's still sending hundreds of billions of dollars overseas. We're $37 trillion in debt. I'm sick of going to work to send money to 10 other countries when we need it here at home, when we got rampant homelessness. We have rampant problems in this country. We need that money. Israel doesn't need that money. They got a robust economy. They got 10 million plus people to fight that war, to service their debt that they're borrowing to fight this. If they want to buy our weapons, we'll sell them the weapons, but we're not going to give them the weapons because AIPAC lobbyists say it's a good idea and you should do it. No, that's over. We're broke. So if there is one country, though, that I'd like to send money and weapons to, it is Israel. That would be my number one choice, because I believe they're surrounded by insane Islamic terrorists. So I believe in Israel, and I love Israel. I love the citizens, and I love Jews. But I'm just telling you that the days of austerity are fast approaching, because we cannot continue to just fork out money through the State Department and through the Department of Defense and all these contracts. It's coming to a close, in my opinion. If I get elected, I'm voting nay, not yay, on every HR act that comes across my desk, and I'm going to stand firm with Thomas Massey And I know Thomas Massey, a lot of Jews do not like Thomas Massey because he's anti-giving all this money, to Israel. So, but I'm just saying at this point, if AIPAC called, which I know they won't, it's totally hypothetical.
I mean, Jack, what percentage is foreign aid of the budget, of the federal budget? Do you know?
Let's grok it real quick. Do you want to find out the real number?
I know what it is, but I was curious to see if you know.
Well, we can do gotcha questions all you want, but just go ahead and tell us, Scott.
I mean, it's less than 1.5%. Right?
1.5% is still a substantial amount of a huge budget. $7 trillion? That's almost $800 billion, Scott.
But usually we give aid in our own interests, right? I mean, we usually help.
800 million, I'm sorry. But it's more than that. It's in the billions. I don't know if your number's correct. Let me grok it.
Oh, let's use grok. Grok it, baby.
Scott, this is my, when I took down petition signatures over this past week in Bloomington, Illinois, I asked everybody who signed, tell me what's your top priority? And I wrote it back on the back of the petition so I wouldn't forget. Guess what the number one, a priority is for most people who signed the petition?
I would guess prices, but
But the price of what? What's the major price in everybody's life?
Eggs, milk.
No, housing, Scott. Housing.
Housing. Okay, housing. Sure. Okay, yeah, housing, absolutely.
So one comment was, why do these people get Section 8 housing? Why am I going to work to pay taxes so these people have an apartment across the street from me? Why don't I get a tax break? Why don't I get a discount on my housing? Why don't I get free housing? So there's a lot of really disgruntled people who, feel like they're getting taken advantage of.
So you would be for cutting public housing?
I'm not for cutting public housing, but I am for reform. And what's amazing is this this Doge AI, Darren LaHood just recently voted on expanding housing tax credits so we can increase the inventory of housing. And Grok AI or Doge AI accurately describes it as inflating an already bloated budget that brings no real growth to the housing market. I can read it for you, but let me do this quick Grok query. Hey, Grok, how much of the U.S. budget is allocated to foreign spending to buy influence?
Will you be taking Grok to D.C. with you if you're elected?
Absolutely. Grok is an amazing tool, especially because it's incorporated into your X account. So all my queries are public. You can immediately post them and immediately repost the reply by Grok. So it's an invaluable tool for publishing. And I'm regularly trying to show other people how to utilize it.
AI that was sort of like extolling Hitler, was that the one?
Yeah. Yep. And it's really because, Elon Musk is totally about free speech. So the software developers had to fine tune it because there is so much hate speech on X. It's shocking, revolting, and terrifying because I could see what it was like probably. And you can probably imagine what it was like in the 1930s for Jews in Germany when media and Hitler and all his acolytes, were putting up signs and destroying Jewish businesses and terrorizing Jews with their, hate speech and political rhetoric. So I think in many ways we are back to that level of insane, rampant Jew hate here in the United States and around the world. I'm 42 and I've only heard a few anti-Semitic things in my life, but the past 1 to 2 years, it has exponentially grown. And I think a lot of it is psychological because I think a lot of people who were never Jew haters and anti-Semites who all of a sudden find themselves hating the Jews, it's really like programming and conditioning from the media that they're consuming. So I think that's probably what's happening.
Well, is there anything you, if you're elected to Congress, can do to combat anti-Semitism? Is there anything you can do other than your own personal influence? Is there anything policy-wise you can do to combat this scourge?
I don't think spending money to combat anti-Semitism is the answer. I mean, as a congressperson, I'd also like to not only be a leader, but an educator. So I think if you read the Tanya, you can see that Jews or Zionists are not genocidal, that they want peace and security like everybody else. And so I think information and education is the way to do it. So this is the Grok response. U.S. foreign aid, often aimed at diplomacy and alliances, is about 1% of the federal budget. For full year 2025, enacted proposed international affairs spending is around 60 to 70 billion out of 6 trillion total, per sources like Pew and Congress. So if we're $37 trillion in debt and we're still spending $70 billion a year on foreign influencing, do you think that's fair for we, the Americans, we, the people, to continue to go to work, to pay our property taxes, income taxes, so your government can fork out $70 billion a year to international special interests?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that foreign aid, right, is used. It's not just charity, right? It's strategically used for things that we want.
Peddling influence, bribery, you might call it.
Well, there's quid pro quo. We want certain countries to do certain things that benefit American interests, maybe have more liberal-leaning, liberal in the small L sense, liberal democratic values, or being amenable to American businesses or other things. Usually we get something from it. Now, we can talk about whether that's a good idea or not, but we just don't do it.
Well, the return on investment, I would say, is more political than actual material. I've been to Jordan twice. The king of Jordan of Amman is getting $500 million a year. Biden gave him hundreds of millions. Why does the king of Amman need all that money? For security purposes? No, he's pocketing that money. That's why he's a billionaire. So until there's transparency on where this money goes, I say stop that $70 million pipe flow. I want to know where it's going, who's getting it, how they're spending it. Scott, do you think there's a transparency problem in the government?
Well, isn't all of that federal aid stuff a matter of public record, right?
When it goes overseas, you know where it goes, Scott? You don't know where it goes. Give me a break.
Well, that's true. The accounting, once it's there, is probably harder to get. But we know on this end of the ledger at least where it's going and why. We don't know if that corresponds to reality. That means we're seeing sure. Kitover, right now, have you debated Mr. Lloyd yet?
No, we have not, but I would love for you to set up a debate between the Democrat candidates and myself, and even the other Republican candidate, who seems like an amazing man who's fighting the system. He's in that article. They mention him. He's got multiple kids. He's just trying to stay alive. I hope him and his kids are out there getting petition signatures. And, it's the regular everyday working people in this country that have no future. They're getting sold out. The rug is being pulled out underneath them every single year, year after year. And if you don't comply with this system, if you don't file your taxes and pay your actual amounts, you could go to jail for that. So I've never seen a congressperson or senator, very rarely do they ever get arrested, for malfeasance and fraud. But they're there. There are congresspeople and senators. Just recently, a Senator Menendez, he went to jail for taking bribes. So
my home state, New Jersey. Menendez, major corruption problem. John, let me ask you this: you get to Congress if you're elected. What's the first bill you'll propose, or what's your first?
So I had Grok. What's amazing is I used Grok to write my first bill. It's called Defunding the Big Beautiful Bill. So it's amazing what Grok can do.
What are the highlights of this bill?
I'd have to pull it, but it's basically rescission on the Big Beautiful Bill, because the Big Beautiful Bill hasn't actually been carried out yet. We're still just so early into the season, but October 1st is the first year of the federal budget. So it's coming, and they're gonna, these corporations are gonna get away with making record high profits. Apple is making more money than it's ever made in its corporate history, and it's gonna pay no taxes, because you and I are gonna go to work to foot the bill for Apple. And we're going to get further plunged into debt because of Apple, because of Microsoft, because of Boeing, because of Northrop Grumman, because of the Fortune 500 that got a sweetheart deal and have tens of thousands of lobbyists to make sure that Congress every year off of K Street does what they tell them to do. And they're just pulling the rug over us again. It's a scam. It's a fraud. It's not a fair compact or bargain. We are being cheated day to day, year to year. Enough is enough. Normal Americans have to wake up and accurately diagnose this disease which is pervasive. It's borrowing and spending. Let's just spend $5 trillion a year for just a couple of years. We don't need to spend that extra $2.5 trillion and give it away and load us up on debt and taxes. It's totally unfair, Scott. I'm sick of it at 42 years old. These baby boomers have pulled the carpet over our eyes. They're deceiving us, and the media is complicit.
John, how do you plan to influence that? I mean, look, I find your position very compelling, and I think this kind of fiscal responsibility would be something that would be admirable, and I think would be salutary for the good of the country. But I mean, how do you do it? I mean, the Republican Party is not exactly a fiscally disciplined party. How do you change the culture of the Republican Party, of the House Republican caucus? Because right now we have a big spender in the White House, and we have folks in Congress, Republicans, tend to be sympathetic with the deficit running approach. How do you change the culture?
Well, I've been in many organizations in my life. I've worked in the U.S. Army. I've worked at Google. I've worked at Microsoft. I've worked at the Treasury, at the IRS, the source of many Americans' problems. And from a cultural perspective, all those organizations were different, but the one universal quality is selfless kindness, truth, transparency, being authentic. That was what somebody told me at an ad tech job. I worked at a large advertising network, and he said, "John, you don't have to worry about a thing. Just be authentic." I was like, "You're right. If you're authentic, everything is gravy. It's all going to work out. There's no misinformation or disinformation." So it's really my attitude and my desire to be fully transparent and create a network of other Republicans or Democrats who also recognize that this fiscal crisis is anti-American. And patriots, regardless of which party you're on, it deals with your character. So my mother is maybe the cheapest woman you've ever met. I hope everybody in Congress has the Protestant cheap ethic that my mother has, because they're cheating us, Scott. I don't want to go to work to give out $70 billion a year to all these foreign countries. It's a ripoff. This isn't how America was set up. Unfortunately, because of Congress and the Federal Reserve, we have created this insane debt bubble. And they're just going to keep kicking the can. And I am here to crush Darren LaHood's can kicking and restore justice and fiscal responsibility for the American people. A balanced budget act will also be my second act that I introduce into Congress. So it's defunding the big, beautiful bill and establishing and introducing a balanced budget act for every American.
John, you're collecting signatures right now to get on the ballot. How many signatures do you require to get on the ballot? How many do you have so far?
It's around 700 confirmed signatures. Right now we have about 100, and I've got about 45 days left. I think October 27th is a good cutoff date, but we have to submit by early November. And it's totally doable. One of the greatest places I found to get signatures is at football games at the tailgates, where there's a parking lot full of thousands of people. That is a place where in 1 day or 2 days or just a couple of those, we will get the signatures we need. So I've looked at the calendar of events in Rockford, in Bloomington, in Peoria, and I'm confident that myself and other people, patriotic Americans who agree with me. I have people, Scott, I have people writing to me via email from my Craigslist postings from all around America who are patriotic, God-fearing Americans that know we are in a disaster type of situation here. And I know they want to get paid, but they want to help the campaign because they believe in my message. And the mantra of my campaign is stop borrowing, stop spending. I tried to ask the interviewer from that NPR interview, can you say it with me? Stop borrowing, stop spending. Scott, can you say it with me? Stop borrowing, stop spending. Go ahead, Scott, say it. See how it feels.
The massive deficit spending. I totally agree. Question from the audience here. Lou B. John asks, what has made Darren LaHood so successful in your district from a campaigning standpoint? How has this guy gotten elected to Congress?
Well, let's be honest. Nobody stands up to fight him. No credible individual standing up to fight him. I think I'm the first fiscal conservative who's ever stood up to him. And I think a lot of people really respect and understand fiscal conservative politics. Darren LaHood he's under the radar, and he dominates because he's got $10 million in the bank account. He can buy the airwaves. He can buy the votes. He's a well-dressed, suit-wearing man with 3 kids and a pretty wife. Who's going to say no to that? But the truth is, this guy is responsible for voting yay on every major HR act, which perfectly aligns with every single donor dollar that he gets. Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, it's all tied to his HR acts. So he's only voting for bills that really give a lot of money away to Fortune 500. So much of this racket, Scott, is tied up in Medicare, Medicaid. Scott, do you know how much we spend in this country every month just on education?
I do. For the federal,
yeah, Department of Education.
Federal government.
Department of Education. How much does the Department of Education spend a month on education in this country?
Oh, I'm sure it's over $100 million a month.
Try $100 billion. The real number is $88 billion a month. Because the budget for the Department of Education is over $1 trillion a year. So if you divide it by 12, it comes out to be $88 billion a month. You use social audio. I don't think that the way we use Clubhouse is really for educational purposes, more entertainment and dramatic, performative type purposes. As you said, I'm like the Andy Kaufman. So I'm just telling you that if we were to ration, people might come on Clubhouse and decide to read a book. They might decide to self-educate. Take self-governance and personal responsibility.
Department of Education was $264.8 billion.
264.8. Well, my Grok numbers might have been off, but thanks for the correction there.
I was going to say that sounded a little high. Well, this is interesting. So you are going to take the sort of classic Ron Paul approach to Congress. You're going to be Dr. Now. Is that fair to say?
Dr. Now is a good name because the now is all important. And back in 2011, I was a big campaign contributor to Ron Paul. I've got a great photo with him. I got to shake his hand because I'm a veteran, and I gave over $600 to his campaign. I told him I would do whatever I could do for you, Mr. Paul. And he just kind of smirked. He said, thank you. And his message was right on the money. He was absolutely right when he was in those debates. We are bankrupt. And that was his going away message to Congress is, you're lying, you're kicking the can, this is deceptive, this is fraudulent, this is anti-American, this is anti-constitutional in a way. I would say definitely, I am from the Ron Paul Liberty University. And the reason, Scott, let me just emphasize, the reason why I believe this is so important is because if we want to have a real economy that has actual growth, that has real profit, that has real assets, we have to stop this fake borrowing and spending because so many corporations are making ruthless profits off of our borrowing and spending, as opposed to providing real products and services with real profit margins. So much of the economy is just because of Congress and the Federal Reserve printing up $2 trillion plus a year that we don't collect in taxes.
So you're saying that this money that we're borrowing then goes into goods and services for corporations, and then that bill is passed on to posterity, to our children, while the immediate payoff is to the corporations.
Either inflation now or inflation in the future or future debt, taxes, and servitude for countless Americans. If you're in college right now, I was just in that college town doing that interview. Most of these, what the government is doing is every single year they're borrowing $10,000 to $20,000 on your behalf. So when you go to college, if you take out $100,000 to get an undergrad degree at a top tier university, not only did you take out that $100,000 loan for 4 years, over that 4 years, the government also tacked on $40,000 in taxes that you're responsible for because your local congressional representative borrowed on your behalf because you voted for him. Until your local congressional senator or Republican tells you, I will not borrow on your behalf, I swear to God, they're just going to keep pulling the rug over our eyes. It is a debt scam, in my opinion. It's fraudulent. It's dishonest. It's not transparent. They couch it. They conceal it with misinformation. Unless you really, Grok is great at that. I mean, that's how I basically pulled out the $500 billion a year in tax credits from the Big Beautiful Bill. If you ask anybody, what's in the Big Beautiful Bill? No one can tell you. But if you use Grok, tell me, what are the top 10 line items of the Big Beautiful Bill? You can see who are the top 50 corporations of recipients from Big Beautiful Bill spending. You can see it. It's right there, but the media isn't going to tell you these things. You have to find it for yourself.
Here's a great question from the audience. Candidate. This is from Lubia. Another question. How do you balance the idea of balancing our budget while still making sure the voter base feels like their quality of life won't go down due to cuts in programs that might assist them in their day-to-day life?
If you think that the government is responsible for your quality of life, you don't know what it means to be an American. Self-governance is what it means to be American. Personal responsibility, self-reliance. This is what it means to be a rugged, individualist American. That's how we protect our freedom, our liberty, our justice. The government is taking that from you, not giving it to you. That's what people fail to realize.
I got to go for the evening here because I have to go tend to a few things. This has been a great conversation. I hope you get some supporters from the crowd, and we'll do this again.
Thank you, Scott. If you want to make a donation, link is up top. Anybody who listens to this interview in the future, anybody in the audience, if you want to give $1, $5, $10, $100, it doesn't matter. I would love to have your support. I'll get your email. I'll get your cell phone number, and I'll text you. I need digital warriors out there helping me to spread this fiscally conservative message, this balanced budget message. And your help can help push us over the edge. And, we might have a small chance of winning, but nonetheless, we're fighting the good fight, and I'm fighting that good fight for you, and especially for my donors, because when I go out there and I stay in a hotel and I buy gas and I get signatures, you are helping fund all that. And I will personally thank you. You may not want your name mentioned on Clown House, but I really can't thank the people who have even given just $600 we've raised. It's been a huge blessing, and those individuals have really encouraged me to keep pushing, because it can be very discouraging fighting somebody with $10 million, and it doesn't seem like there's a hope. But these little butterfly effects, this social audio can result. You never know who's going to listen to it, Scott. You never know who's got the big bucks who can say, you know what, John, I like your message. I like what you're saying. Here's $10,000. Here's $5,000. Let's see what you can do. And it's only 700 signatures. I ran for committee person, which is a no paid nothing position. It's the same number of signatures. I spent 45 days busting my ass getting those signatures, and corrupt Republicans committed petition fraud and had the perfect number of signatures, perfectly signed. The papers had never been touched. So, Scott, the political industrial complex is incredibly corrupt. I've witnessed it firsthand the first time I ran, and I'm sure it'll be no different the second time I run. But money can help me get enough signatures to where when they challenge every signature, we will have enough. No matter how hard they challenge, we'll have enough signatures. So thank you, Scott, for doing this interview. God bless you. And I really appreciate you, and I like you as a friend and as a person. And thanks for doing this interview with me.
Thanks, Congressman. You're the man.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody in the audience and anybody who listens to this. Thanks, Scott. Oh, Scott, you want to close us out with a prayer? You're a reverend.
Lord, we ask that you increase the peace in this country, and that you bless candidate Kitover and give him wisdom and grace and peace.
From your lips to God's ears. Thanks, Scott.
Amen. See you guys.
Amen. Okay, thanks, everybody. Hope you guys have a great evening. Bye. I'm going to share this on X. If anybody here on X has X, follow me. It's John Kitover IL. This is a great interview with Scott. I really appreciate everybody for being here and listening. Baby, big la. Have a great evening. Take care. Bye.